And so this, the Shaykh says, this is what the verse is referring to, and this is the correct interpretation of this verse, which is that the pagans or these mushriks, they worship Allah and they love Allah. It's not that they don't love Him, they acknowledge Him, they believe in Him, and they love Him, but at the same time, they also direct this love to other than Him as well, to the idols or to the statues, and this love is just as intense for the idols and the statues in these people as it is for Allah. And so therefore they equate between the love of Allah and the love of these idols and these statues that they worship. And then the Shaykh says that these pagans, you find that they've never ceased to be upon this. Even up until this time, you find that those who, for example, they worship like the tombs and the mausoleums, they go to these tombs, they go to the mausoleums, and you know, they come to worship the individuals which are inside and who may be represented by statues or whatever else might be present, but they come to worship them and they love them in a manner that only Allah should be loved. And for this reason you find that one of the characteristics of these people is that when you when you tell them that this worship that they are directing to these people or to these individuals or to these tombs and mausoleums, that this is false, and that this worship will avail them and benefit them nothing. You find that they become extremely angry. They become extremely angry, and they become extremely jealous, and if you like, zealous for those whom they are worshipping. And that in itself is a sign, is a proof and a sign to show that they are worshipping them with the love, which is the love of worship, meaning which is characterized with the humility and subservience and obedience and servitude, and this is how it is. And sometimes the Shaykh says, if you tell them that it won't benefit you, rather it's something that will harm you, these people will become angry, and in fact they might even fight you for it. They might even fight you for it. Why? Because the Shaykh says, exactly as Allah said, يُحِبُّونَهُمْ كَحُبِّ اللَّهِ, meaning that they love those that they worship in a manner that only Allah should be loved. And so basically this then describes the characteristics of these people who go to the graves and they call upon these people. They believe that they are saints, they believe that they have some sort of power, they believe they have some sort of standing, and you find that the general frame of mind that these people have when they go to these places is that you find that they're very humble, very submissive, very obedient, and this is how they are, because they believe that this thing that they are worshipping, or this person that they are worshipping, has that kind of status and position. And so therefore, the state of mind that they have is just like, for example, a believer would have when he's praying, when he's standing in the prayer to Allah, meaning he has subservience and humility and whatever. And this is how it is with these people. This is how it is with these people. So the Shaykh then says, continuing with the verse, that Allah says, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَشَّدُّ حُبًّا لِلَّهِ, that those who believe, that as for those who believe, then they are more intense, more severe in their love for Allah. And this here is referring to those who single out their love for Allah, meaning that they don't direct this type of love, which is the love of worship, to anyone besides Him. Right? So meaning they single out their love for Allah, and they are obviously the believers, those, and they are more severe and intense in their love for Allah than the pagans are in their love for Allah. Why? Because the difference is that the believers in the love, they direct it only to Allah, whereas the pagans, they direct it to Allah and to other than Him. And for that reason, the love of those who are the believers, who worship Allah alone and who single Him out alone in the affairs of worship, then theirs is no doubt more intense and more severe. And it's more severe and more intense than the love of the pagans. And for this reason, this is the type of love that will benefit a person. As for the love of those who worship Allah and those besides Him, so the direct love to Allah and to other than Him, then that will not benefit so long as they continue to ascribe partners or have partners or set up rivals and partners along with Allah in the forms and affairs of worship. And then the Shaykh summarizes and he says that this particular verse in the Quran, it shows that worship itself, that this issue of love, that love is from the many types of worship. Love is one of the many types of worship, and in fact it's one of the greatest forms and types of worship. And the verse also proves that anyone who loves alongside Allah in a manner that only Allah should be loved, then he has committed shirk. He has committed, he has associated partners with Allah. And this action of his would constitute the major shirk, and this is something that would expel him from the fold of Islam, because this person has set up a rival and an equal alongside Allah in the affairs of worship. And the Shaykh then says, and just like the people of the fire will say on the Day of Judgment, when they will be addressing those whom they set up as rivals with Allah, they will say, Tallahi in kunna lafi dalalin mubin idh nusawwikum bi rabbil alameen. So these people will say that indeed by Allah we were astray when we equated, meaning that when we set up rivals and when we made equals between the Lord of the worlds. So meaning that they will acknowledge their action and their error, and they will realize that their error was that they set up equals and rivals in the worship of Allah the Most High. So this then is the first verse in the chapter. And just to summarize then, basically we're looking at the issue of love and how love is one of the forms and types of worship, and how worship itself is based upon three affairs, which is love, fear and hope. Love, fear and hope. And that love, fear and hope are three emotions of the heart which basically underlie everyone's actions. These are the primary motivations behind every person's action. Either he loves something, or he hopes in something, or he fears something. And these three are the foundations of worship, worshipping Allah. And meaning that a person should love Allah, should fear His punishment and hope in His mercy, and that these three should be present in every single action that a person does in order for it to be counted or for it to be accepted as acceptable worship. But in this chapter we're looking specifically at muhabba, which is love. And so love itself is divided into two types. The first type, which is considered love, which is worship, which would constitute worship, and this is when a person, when he loves someone, then alongside it he has humility and subservience, and this kind of humbling oneself and obedience as well. So that would then make it worship. And as for the worship, the love which is not considered to be worship, then it is of four types. And this is like the natural type of love that every person has. He loves food, he loves drink, he loves clothing, he loves those things from which he attains pleasure, so long as they're permissible and lawful, like within marriage and other forms of pleasure, whatever. And this is the first type. The second type is the love that's shown, which is like a love of honor that offspring show to the parents. Then the other way around, which is the third type of love, which is the love that is shown by the parents to the offspring, which is a love which has within it mercy and compassion. And the fourth type of love is just a general type of love of companionship and friendship and whatever that everyone has. And that all of this is permissible, it's all fine, it's not considered worship in any form, it's just something that's natural, and that's fine. But as for the love of worship, which, as we said, is characterized in, with it being accompanied with humility and subservience and humbling oneself and having this type of awe and whatever to the one that is the object of one's love, that then now becomes worship. And you see that these people who worship these things besides Allah, whether they worship these saints in the graves, whether they worship idols or statues or whatever it is, you find that their love is this type of love. It's a love which is coupled with awe and humility and subservience and obedience and whatever. And so therefore that would make them equating between Allah and between those besides Allah, those whom they worship. And this is this is the biggest sin. This is the major sin, and this would expel them if they did this while they were Muslim. This would expel them from the fold of Islam. Okay, the next verse. So this is the end of the first verse in this chapter. The next verse the Shaykh brings, it's a verse in Surah At-Tawbah, the 9th chapter, verse number 24. And in this verse Allah says, قُلْ إِنْ كَانَ آبَاؤُكُمْ وَأَبْنَاؤُكُمْ وَإِخْوَانُكُمْ وَأَزْوَاجُكُمْ وَعَشِيرَتُكُمْ وَأَمْوَالٌ اقْتَرَفْتُمُوهَا وَتِجَارَةٌ تَخْشَوْنَ كَسَادَهَا وَمَسَاكِنُ تَرْضَوْنَهَا أَحَبَّ إِلَيْكُمْ مِنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَجِهَادٍ فِي سَبِيلِهِ فَتَرَبَّصُوا حَتَّى يَأْتِيَ اللَّهُ بِأَمْرِهِ. This rough meaning of which is that say that if your fathers and your children and your brothers and your wives and your relatives and the wealth which you have acquired and the trade in which you fear a decline and the places in which you reside are more beloved to you than Allah and His Messenger and struggling in His path and striving in His path, then just wait up until Allah brings His affair or brings His command. So this verse, what is the general meaning of this verse? This verse shows that any person who puts ahead the love of these things, meaning these material things, he puts the love of these material things ahead of the love of Allah, then he is subject to this, to what occurs in this verse of this threat. Meaning, فَتَرَبَّصُوا, meaning just wait up until Allah comes with His affair. And at the end of it, Allah says, وَاللَّهُ لَا يَحْدِي الْقَوْمُ الْفَاسِقِينَ. Indeed, Allah does not guide a sinful people. So Allah here, He labeled anyone who is described with this characteristic as a fasiq, meaning as someone who is sinful. And fisq means to remove oneself from the obedience of Allah. This is the meaning of fisq. So Allah says, لَا يَحْدِي الْقَوْمُ الْفَاسِقِينَ. Allah will not guide the people who do not, who remove themselves from the obedience of Allah, meaning that He will not grant them success in Iman, in attaining Iman. And this verse is similar to other verses in the Quran. Allah says, for example, لا يحدي القوم الظالمين. Allah will not guide a people who are wrong, who are oppressive and wrongful. So anyone who falls into oppression and wrongdoing, that person will not receive guidance. And likewise, لا يحدي القوم الكافرين. Allah will not guide a disbelieving people. So meaning that the guidance which is beneficial, is the guidance of tawfiq. Meaning this is the actual guidance that Allah gives to a person in successfully traversing upon the path. But as for just having knowledge of what is correct and what is true, then this is common between everyone. Everyone knows this is present, this exists. Everyone has received this guidance, meaning that Allah has explained the path of goodness and the path of evil, and He's shown guidance to everyone, whether it's a Muslim, non-Muslim, everyone alike, and He showed them the path. But that level there is just the level of guidance itself, meaning in terms of knowledge and in terms of knowing. But as for actual success in following the path, that's yet another level, and this is called hafidha-ullah. This is called the guidance of success, and this is something that's bestowed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's something that He gives to those who are worthy and worthy of it and who are deserving of it, and that's why it's specific and unique to the believers, to the mu'minun. And so we'll stop the lesson there, and we're going to continue with this in the next lesson, inshallah, because this chapter is quite lengthy, so we'll break it down into maybe 3 or 4 lessons. But for today, we'll stop the lesson there. So just to summarize what we've been through, we covered the issue of love, muhabba, which is one of the pillars of worship. And this love, we have to distinguish between the different types of love. There is that type of love which would constitute worship in the sense that it's coupled with humility and subservience and obedience and whatever, and all of these characteristics, that will then become worship. and that which is not worship from the other four types that we mentioned. And by the textual proof that we looked at, love is from the affairs of worship, and so therefore, just like everything else that we've discussed, it has to be singled out for Allah, meaning that this type of love should only be directed to Allah alone and to no one else besides Him. And this is the Tawheed, or this is the monotheism, if you like, that that we've been commanded with. So inshallah we'll elaborate further and we'll expand further upon this by looking at some of the other texts in the next lesson, which will be next week inshallah ta'ala.